We take part in a whole lot of conversations through the day. At home, at work, in the streets. It's a whole lot. Well, at least before we got locked up. But are we really present in these conversations? And when we are, do we listen? No. I mean listen. Not just have words flow through one ear and out the other. Quite often, we're hearing what others tell us, but don't really listen to what they have to say. Listening means we pay attention, absorb the words that come to us, understand what the other person's saying. Listening means to not interrupt them. It means to not derail where they're going. There are about 10 blocks to listening, and every day we fall prey to all of them. Conversations are not easy at all, especially with family. The Meyerowitz Stories by Noah Baumbach does great to show that.
I beat you!
There's a video essay by the nerd writer which explains how realistic his dialogues are. He talks about how people spill over one another, half listening, interrupting, and misunderstanding one another. Something we're all very familiar with. I, though, would like to focus on something more specific, on how the characters in the movie listen, or rather, how they don't.
Sorry, it's okay!
Before we get into it, I'd like to say there are no spoilers for the movie in this video. This is a slice of life movie and it's very difficult to give spoilers for something like this. So you could watch the entire video without worrying about that.
In my office at Xerox, I'm known as the resident auteur. I make funny movies for my coworkers' birthdays.
They're really good.
We have no idea what Jean does at Xerox.
I'm a facilities manager for
When
special...
was the last job you had, Danny?
The most common block to listening is the topic shifter. For a lot of us, conversations become a competition about getting our thoughts out. So we start jumping topics before the speaker is even done. Like here, where Maureen opened a topic about Jean but jumped into a new idea before Jean could even respond for the same. It tends to happen a lot with families and friends. Keep a watch out for this block, which we'll highlight in the same color through the video.
Those piano lessons.
Except for the piano lesson?
And there's that gig at Beefsteak Charlie's.
I haven't worked in since Eliza was born.
Danny was a house husband, but now with the separation, he's gonna have to get a job. You can't take alimony. It's not right.
What will you do for money?
We sold the apartment, so we'll split that. And I'll be staying here for a little, of course, while I figure it out. Thank you again.
While you're staying here, could you go through all the boxes upstairs and take any posters or papers that you want from your childhood?
Marina's taking a fancy trip to Easter Island Monday with a group.
When I come back, we're gonna start throwing things away.
We
We
lived
don't
in
really
Queens with
have
our
anything.
mom.
It's mostly Matt's stuff, but okay.
Matthew's coming out from the coast in a few weeks. He corresponded with me about meeting for lunch.
Okay, this one had a couple of blocks in it. At first, we can see that Danny's father, Harold, starts advising him to find a job and that he cannot take alimony even before Danny got to finish what he was saying. Parental and authoritative figures often feel the need to guide and advise regardless of what the other person is trying to say. Not that the advice by itself is bad, but was it needed in the first place? And could they have waited to say it? Then we have the moment where Danny thanks his father for allowing him to stay at the house, but Maureen's response to that is giving him a task to do now that he is here. This is called filtering. She doesn't pay attention to the part where he thanks them, but just to the fact that he would be around, which is all the information she needs to get her thought across. It doesn't really matter what the entire sentence was. She got what she wanted.
I didn't get to see it.
And the video work is embarrassing. I've never forgiven LJ for using Loretta in those pieces. You don't do that to a child. And it's a disturbing commentary on the culture that truly ordinary work, made mostly by his assistants, gets reverent reviews from the critics, who ought to know better. He's a talented, pretentious enigma.
Let me see if there's a cab. It's nice to see Loretta.
She's very happy to see me. She gave me quite a kiss.
I did well. It was pretty funny, I think. I didn't get her number or anything. Maybe you could give me LJ's email.
This conversation between father and son is quite interesting. We can see that Harold is clearly quite annoyed by something they just experienced. Danny is confused as to how to respond, so he chooses to shift the topic. which is a listening block by itself, but the new one we find is when his father responds. Harold responds to Danny's mention of Loretta by talking about how glad Loretta was to meet him, to which Danny talks about how well his conversation with her went. The two of them are not really conversing and listening to one another, but rather comparing themselves to each other. This one's called the yardstick. We quite often want to show in conversation for some reason that our experiences are equally awesome as the other person's, or sometimes even better. Somehow, it always becomes a weird competition when we converse with others.
A few days until Dad's opening at
Stay
Bard.
with us at Maureen's house.
Okay.
Dad says you started your own company.
Yeah, a couple other guys and me
How's that
decided
work? You just tell your boss, like, I'm gonna start
Well,
mine?
I was one of the partners, so I didn't technically
Right.
have a boss.
No, I understand. So you got a better offer
No, there were no offers. That's what was so scary. We were creating our own opportunity.
because you wanted something smaller,
Bigger. Many of the firm's clients came with us.
which was surprising.
No, we expected it. We can't legally ask clients to come with us.
But they don't
we
have
trust
much choice.
It's totally their choice.
No, I know, because you have their money.
Well, their money is with the firm, but their money is in investments
I
or a
understand.
bank.
My buddy told me.
This is a wonderful scene to understand the dynamics of brothers, or rather half-brothers, when they're in conversation. Danny tries to show he is close to Matthew by trying to complete his sentences, that he gets him and understands how Matthew's mind works. But what this means is that Danny is not really listening to what Matt is saying. He's constantly jumping to conclusions as to what Matt might mean with the preconceived notions he already holds. And quite often, he's wrong. People do this in conversations when they want to show how smart they are or their ability to keep up in the conversation, when they want to relate to what the other person says. But rather, we could just take a step back, listen, and learn. There's nothing wrong with that. These and a few more blocks to listening prevent us from having meaningful conversations and thereby relationships. Subconsciously, we don't converse, we compete. Warhorse is trying to change that. We want to make people better listeners and engage better with one another.
Sign up today. Have more questions? DM or call us now to set up a free of charge appointment with one of our trainers.